Hello again. I'm here again. My name is Lysander, and I'm going to be doing a live book reading from Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And I'll be reading the chapter Observing Without Evaluating. And again, this is just to share what I think is invaluable info. I encountered it for the first time like 8 years ago, and it's really life-changing, and it can be a relationship saver or improver. That's what the title looks like. Take myself back to the chapter. Just a moment to check. Looks like everything is running. So welcome. I hope that you find value in this share. We've been cultured in most places to communicate and also to listen in ways that are not likely to help us get our needs met or to receive the response that we like from those closest to us, but instead to receive defensiveness, criticism, misunderstanding, and assumptions. So I really do mean it that this material has the potential to improve or rescue relationships where the core issue is just the misunderstandings created by not understanding what it is we're really feeling and needing and what our partner is really feeling and needing. So let's see. So this chapter begins with a poem. I can handle your telling me what I did or didn't do, and I can handle your interpretations, but please don't mix the two. If you want to confuse any issue, I can tell you how to do it, mix together what I do with how you react to it. Tell me that you're disappointed with the unfinished chores you see, but calling me irresponsible is no way to motivate me. And tell me that you're feeling hurt when I say no to your advances, but calling me a frigid man will increase your future chances. Yes, I can handle your telling me what I did or did not do. I can handle your interpretations, but please don't mix the two. Written by Marshall, the author. So again, this chapter is called Observing Without Evaluating. And this is so core to changing the way you talk and listen to the people in your lives. The first component of nonviolent communication entails the separation of observation from evaluation. We need to clearly observe what we are seeing, hearing, or touching that is affecting our sense of well-being without mixing in any evaluation. Observations are an important element in nonviolent communication where we wish to clearly and honestly express how we are to another person. When we combine observation with evaluation, we decrease the likelihood that others will hear our intended message. Instead, they are apt to hear criticism and thus resist whatever we are saying. This is so important. I don't mean to kind of repeat everything, but I think it's really important to take in some of this. When we combine observation with evaluation, like, our judgments, our assessments, interpretations of what has happened, we decrease the likelihood that others will hear an intended message. Instead, they are apt to hear criticism and thus resist whatever we are saying. People become defensive. They shut down, they lash, they criticize back. That's unfortunately the norm in most communications and relationships, especially what I observe here in my readings with all of you. And it doesn't have to be that way. Nonviolent communication does not mandate that we remain completely objective and refrain from evaluating. It only requires that we maintain a separation between our observations and our evaluations. Nonviolent communication is a process language that discourages static generalizations. Instead, evaluations are to be based on observations specific to time and context. Semanticist Wendell Johnson pointed out that we create many problems for ourselves by using static language to express or capture a reality that is ever changing. Quote, "Our language is an imperfect instrument created by ancient and ignorant men. It is an animistic language that invites us to talk about stability and constants, about similarities and normals and kinds, about magical transformations, quick cures, simple problems, and final solutions. Yet the world we try to symbolize with this language is a world of process, change, differences, dimensions, functions, relationships, growths, interactions, developing, learning, coping, and complexity. And the mismatch of our ever-changing world and our relatively static language is part of our problem." End quote. When we combine observation and evaluation, people are apt to hear criticism. A colleague of mine, Ruth Biebermeyer, contrasts static and process language in a song that illustrates the difference between evaluation and observation. It quotes the lyrics. "I've never seen a lazy man. I've seen a man who never ran. While I watched him, and I've seen a man who sometimes slept between lunch and dinner, and who'd stay at home upon a rainy day, but he was not a lazy man. Before you call me crazy, think, was he a lazy man, or did he just do things we label lazy? I've never seen a stupid kid. I've seen a kid who sometimes did things I didn't understand, or things in ways I hadn't planned. I've seen a kid who hadn't seen the same places where I had been, but he was not a stupid kid. Before you call him stupid, think, was he a stupid kid, or did he just know different things than you did? I've looked as hard as I can look, but never ever seen a cook. I saw a person who combined ingredients on which we dined, a person who turned on the heat and watched the stove that cooked the meat. I saw those things, but not a cook. Tell me when you're looking, is it a cook you see, or is it someone doing things that we call cooking? What some of us call lazy, some call tired or easygoing. What some of us call stupid, some just call a different knowing. So I've come to the conclusion it will save us all confusion if we don't mix up what we see with what is our opinion. Because you may, I want to say also, I know that's only my opinion." And lyrics. While the effects of negative labels such as lazy and stupid may be more obvious, even a positive or apparently neutral label such as cook limits our perception of the totality of another person's being. The next section is called The Highest Form of Human Intelligence. The Indian philosopher J. Krishnamurti once remarked that observing without evaluating is the highest form of human intelligence. When I first read this statement, the thought, "What nonsense," shot through my mind before I realized that I'd just made an evaluation. For most of us, it is difficult to make observations, especially of people and their behavior, that are free of judgment, criticism, or other forms of analysis. I became acutely aware of this difficulty while working with an elementary school where the staff and principal had often reported communication difficulties. The district superintendent had requested that I help them resolve the conflict. First, I was to confer with the staff and then with the staff and principal together. I opened the meeting by asking the staff, "What is the principal doing that conflicts with your needs?" "He has a big mouth," came the swift response. My question called for an observation, but while Big Mouth gave me information on how this teacher evaluated the principal, it failed to describe what the principal said or did that led to the interpretation that he had a big mouth. When I pointed this out, a second teacher offered, "I know what he means. The principal talks too much." Instead of a clear observation of the principal's behavior, this was also an evaluation of how much the principal talked. A third teacher then declared, "He thinks only he has anything worth saying." I explained that inferring what another person is thinking is not the same as observing his behavior. Finally, a fourth teacher ventured, "He wants to be the center of attention all the time." After I remarked that this too was an inference of what another person is wanting, two teachers blurted in unison, "Well, your question is very hard to answer." We subsequently worked together to create a list identifying specific behaviors on the part of the principal that bothered them, and made sure that the list was free of evaluation. For example, instead of all the evaluations or criticisms you just heard, the actual specific things the principal was doing, the principal told stories about his childhood and war experiences during faculty meetings, with the result that meetings sometimes ran 20 minutes over time. When I asked whether they had ever communicated their annoyance to the principal, the staff replied that they had tried, but only through evaluative comments. Like you heard before, you talk too much, etc. They had never made reference to specific behaviors, such as his storytelling, and they agreed to bring these up when we are all to meet together. Almost as soon as the meeting began, I saw what the staff had been telling me. No matter what was being discussed, the principal would interject, "This reminds me of a time," and then launch into a story about his childhood or war experience. I waited for the staff to voice their discomfort around the principal's behavior. However, instead of nonviolent communication, they applied nonverbal condemnation. Some rolled their eyes, others yawned pointedly, one stared at his watch. I endured this painful scenario until finally I asked, "Isn't anyone going to say something?" An awkward silence ensued. The teacher who had spoken first at our meeting screwed up his courage, looked directly at the principal and said, "Ed, you have a big mouth." As the story illustrates, it's not always easy to shed our old habits and master the ability to separate observation from evaluation. Eventually, the teacher succeeded in clarifying for the principal the specific actions that led to their concern. The principal listened earnestly and then pressed, "Why didn't one of you tell me before?" He admitted he was aware of his storytelling habit and then began a story pertaining to this habit. I interrupted it, observing good-naturedly that he was doing it again. We ended our meeting by developing ways for the staff to let the principal know in a gentle way when his stories weren't appreciated. So this is so important. Obviously, this example is about staff at a school, but the principal wasn't being malicious, and he wasn't even adverse to changing. And meanwhile, everyone else held a lot of ill will against this person for their behavior, but the way that they were communicating it didn't actually say what was happening. So if you think about intimate relationships, if, for example, one partner feels like the other talks too much or that they don't value what they have to say, that may not actually be what's happening at all. Another person could even be totally ignorant of their habit of going on talking about long stories and tangents, and sometimes inadvertently speaking over the other person. And just, it could be because they're excited or they enjoy talking so much, and they could actually feel quite hurt when criticized, saying they have a big mouth, and become shut down and depressed. And you can see how this would sort of needlessly snowball into a relationship problem. When someone could simply say specifically what the person is talking about and when, under what circumstances that bothers them, because they would like an opportunity to talk to or would appreciate the person getting to the point. The person can then adhere to that request. And if the person wants to go on about stories, they can say that they'd like to talk about something, and if the person would listen to them. So that's just talking about how that applies and how we, excuse my wording is a little sloppy, we create suffering for ourselves and disharmony in our relationships that doesn't have to be there. And we can have so much ill will and anger towards our partners when there's just a misunderstanding, and the opportunity to actually meet our needs has never been given. We've never given that to our partner, and vice versa, because we don't know how to communicate in a better way. Distinguishing observations from evaluations. Let's see, there's a table here, so I'm seeing if it's necessary to read that. So, the following table distinguishes observations that are separate from evaluation from those that have evaluation mixed in. So I'm going to go ahead and read the table. So there are different things here. The first example is use of the verb to be without indication that the evaluator takes responsibility for the evaluation. The example of observation with evaluation mixed in would be, you are too generous. Now, separating evaluation from this, when I see you give all your lunch money to others, I think you are being too generous. 2. Use of verbs with evaluative connotations. And this is observation with evaluation mixed in. Doug procrastinates. Separating the evaluation from that, Doug only studies for exams the night before. That's saying literally the action taking place. 3. Implication that one's inferences about another person's thoughts, feelings, intentions, or desires are the only ones possible. An example is, she won't get her work in. Removing evaluation from this, I don't think she'll get her work in. Or, she said, I won't get my work in. So that's a slight difference. Instead of stating she won't get her work in as a fact, you say that you think that about this person. Or if she said that, then to relay that she literally stated that sentiment herself. 4. Confusion of prediction with certainty. The example is, if you don't eat balanced meals, your health will be impaired. Separating evaluation from this, if you don't eat balanced meals, I fear your health may be impaired. So it's taking responsibility for your statement as your concern rather than it being a fact or judgment of what another is doing. 5. Failure to be specific about reference. The example, immigrants don't take care of their property. Obviously, it's a very judgmental statement. Separating evaluation from this, I have not seen the immigrant family living at 1679 Ross shovel the snow on their sidewalk. Taking responsibility for one's evaluation of a very specific person rather than generalizing. 6. Use of words denoting ability without indicating that an evaluation is being made. An example, Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. Separating evaluation from observation, Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games is literally the thing that has occurred. 7. Use of adverbs and adjectives in ways that do not indicate an evaluation has been made. An example, Jim is ugly. Separating evaluation from observation, you'd say, Jim's looks don't appeal to me. Again, taking responsibility for your feeling and observation rather than stating it as a fact or judgment about the other person. Note, the words always, never, ever, whenever, etc. express observations when used in the following ways. Examples. Whenever I have observed Jack on the phone, he has spoken for at least 30 minutes. So it's not saying all the time, just when you have observed him speaking, that's how long he speaks. I cannot recall your ever writing to me. Sometimes such words are used as exaggerations, in which case observations and evaluations are being mixed, such as, you are always busy. She's never there when she's needed. When these words are used as exaggerations, they often provoke defensiveness rather than compassion. Words like frequently and seldom can also contribute to confusing observation with evaluation. The evaluation is, you seldom do what I want, but changing that into an observation. The last 3 times I initiated an activity, you said you didn't want to do it. The difference. An evaluation is he frequently comes over. The observation version is he comes over at least 3 times a week, which is more literally what has happened, not your evaluation of what has happened. Summary. The first component of nonviolent communication entails the separation of observation from evaluation. When we combine observation with evaluation, others are apt to hear criticism and resist what we are saying. Nonviolent communication is a process language that discourages static generalizations. Instead, observations are to be made specific to time and context. For example, Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games, rather than Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. NVC, or nonviolent communication in action. The most arrogant speaker we've ever had. So, this is a story Marshall tells. This dialogue occurred during a workshop I was conducting. About half an hour into my presentation, I paused to invite reactions from the participants. One of them raised a hand and declared, "You're the most arrogant speaker we've ever had." How inflammatory. I have several options open to me when people address me this way. One option is to take the message personally. I know I'm doing this when I have a strong urge to either grovel, defend myself, or make excuses. Another option, for which I am well rehearsed, is to attack the other person for what I perceive as their attack upon me. And as I'm sure some of us well know, this is a common dynamic in our intimate relationships. On this occasion, I chose a third option by focusing on what might be going on behind the man's statement. Marshall says, guessing at the observations we made, "Are you reacting to my having taken 30 straight minutes to present my views before giving you a chance to talk?" Phil, the man in the audience who said he was arrogant, says, "No, you make it sound so simple." Marshall, trying to obtain further clarification, "Are you reacting to my not having said anything about how the process can be difficult for some people to apply?" Phil says, "No, not some people, you." Marshall says, "So you're reacting to my not having said that the process can be difficult for me at times?" Phil says, "That's right." Marshall says, "Are you feeling annoyed because you would have liked some sign from me that indicated that I have some problems with the process myself?" Phil says, after a moment's pause, "That's right." Marshall, feeling more relaxed now that I am in touch with the person's feeling and need, I direct my attention to what he might be requesting of me. "Would you like me to admit right now that this process can be a struggle for me to apply?" Phil says, "Yes." Marshall says, Marshall, having gotten clear on his observation, feeling, need, and request, I check inside myself to see if I am willing to do as he requests. Marshall says, "Yes, this process is often difficult for me. As we continue with the workshop, you'll probably hear me describe several incidents where I've struggled or completely lost touch with this process, this consciousness that I am presenting here to you. But what keeps me in the struggle are the close connections to other people that happen when I do stay with the process." And at the end of this chapter is an exercise. So I'll go ahead and share that with you. And the exercise is this an observation or an evaluation? To determine your proficiency at discerning between observations and evaluations, complete the following exercise. So there's a few statements, and you just need to decide if a statement is an observation only or has evaluation mixed into it. The first one, "John was angry with me yesterday for no reason." Just, let's see, should I go? The answers are here too. I'll go one by one. All right, so for that statement, if you decided this was just an observation, we're not in agreement. I consider for no reason to be an evaluation. Furthermore, I consider it an evaluation to infer that John was angry. He might have been feeling hurt, scared, sad, or something else. Examples of observations without evaluation might be, John told me he was angry, or John pounded his fist on the table. So, the second statement, is this an observation or an evaluation? Yesterday evening, Nancy bit her fingernails while watching television. All right. If you said that this was an observation, we're in agreement. Then an observation was expressed without being mixed together with an evaluation. It's just literally a statement of what you saw someone doing, without inferring what they might have been feeling or thinking. Third statement. Is this an observation or evaluation? Sam didn't ask for my opinion during the meeting. If you said that this was an observation without evaluation mixed in, we are in agreement. Fourth statement. My father is a good man. Observation or evaluation. If you said that this was an observation, we're not in agreement. I consider a good man to be an evaluation. An observation without evaluation might be, for the last 25 years, my father has given 1/10 of his salary to charity, which is a literal statement of what has occurred. 5. The next statement, observation or evaluation. Janice works too much. You said that this was an observation without evaluation. We're not in agreement. I consider too much to be an evaluation. An observation only might be, Janice spent more than 60 hours at the office this week. The sixth statement, Henry is aggressive. Is this an observation or an evaluation? So, if you said that this was an observation, we're not in agreement. Aggressive, I consider aggressive to be an evaluation. An observation might have been, Henry hit his sister when she switched the television channel. Obviously not ideal behavior, but language matters. The next statement, Pam was first in line every day this week. Is this an observation or an evaluation? See, if you said that this was an observation without evaluation, then we're in agreement. 8. My son often doesn't brush his teeth. Observation or evaluation? If you said that this was an observation, we're not in agreement. I consider often to be an evaluation. An observation without evaluation might be, twice this week, my son didn't brush his teeth before going to bed. 9th statement. Luke told me I didn't look good in yellow. Is this an observation or an evaluation? If you said this was an observation, we're in agreement. It's just a statement of what someone said without qualifying it. The last statement, my aunt complains when I talk with her. Is this an observation or an evaluation? If you said that this is an observation, we're not in agreement. I consider complains to be an evaluation. An observation without evaluation might be, my aunt called me 3 times this week and each time talked about people who treated her in ways she didn't like. So that is the end of the chapter. So again, this chapter was observation without evaluation. And it was talking about the importance of, like, for example, in a relationship, kind of giving my own thoughts about this and applying it more to relationships. Kind of thinking of examples on the fly. Something that's unfortunately common that I'm asked about is if a partner is cheating, and so asking someone if they're cheating on you is a very quick way to start a fight and to make someone defensive. And this is just the first example that comes to mind. Maybe it's not the best one, but instead you might consider the specific things the person is saying or doing, and how you feel about those words and actions by that person. So the accusation of that, or it doesn't have to be like, are you cheating? Are you seeing someone else? It could be, you never spend any time with me. You don't care about my feelings. You never listen to me. Did I already say that? You're never around when I need you. You're unreliable. You're lazy. All the judgmental and awful things we say to the people we love. And that we are surprised when the person doesn't respond well to this, and an argument ensues. And then later on, we think, why doesn't this person just understand and do what it is I want them to do? Maybe it's because we're speaking in an inflammatory way. So something that would be more helpful is observing our need. We didn't really cover that in this particular chapter. And what it is a person's doing that's not filling that need, and to request a change. The person may not agree to change, but at least you've communicated what you actually want from them instead of them trying to guess what it is you want. Or just going completely on the defensive or attacking in turn, obviously, because then the communication doesn't go anywhere and it's not really conducive. So you're never there when I need you. This is inflammatory, and pretty much no one's going to respond well to that. Most people don't know to say, so what is it I'm doing that makes you feel that way? That's not usually the response you're going to get. So instead, we'll go with that example instead. You feel like your partner's never there for you. Consider how you feel and what needs not being filled. What specifically did that person do or not do that they were not there for you? So instead of you're never there for me, upon observation, you may discover that the last 3 times you asked them to come see you, or the last 3 times you asked for their opinion on an event happening in your life, by talking to them on the phone, they did not respond in the way that you wanted. The last 3 times I asked you, let's see, so instead of saying you're never there for me when I need you, you could say to your partner, the last 3 times we have talked, or the last 3 times I was kind of going through some things, and I wanted to talk to you about what was going on and was hoping to get your advice about what was going on. You did not engage that conversation with me. You said that you had things to do or that you didn't have the time to listen. I feel a need for more emotional support. I'd appreciate it if you could help me in this way. The person may say that they're not capable of being there for you in that way, but at least they can give you a clear and direct answer about what it is you really want, rather than saying, you're never there for me when I need you, and then saying, like, what do you mean? I helped you move. I drove you here and there for your doctor's appointments. How dare you say that? You're ungrateful. And the evaluations or judgments and criticisms gets thrown back and forth. Maybe it's not the most perfect example, but I hope it kind of illustrates how very different, the two very different ways that conversation could go. You might get a positive response. The person says, I didn't realize that this was so important to you. I'm not always available to listen, discuss. I'm not always in the right headspace for it. But when I am able to, I would like to be there for you. So how about at this time we meet up for coffee and you can talk about what's on your mind or something like that. Then you're able to negotiate needs and reach a solution that makes everyone happy. And this is a scenario where you're asking for something, but, you know, with someone who cares about you, it's a gift. It's a gift when someone comes to you and says, I have this need, this is the specific way you can fill it. You're given an opportunity to nurture your relationship and to show you're caring for another person in the way that they need and want when you're willing to do that. And it also respects your own autonomy and choice. In a more dramatic example, like you fear your partner is unfaithful, you may consider what specifically your partner is or is not doing that makes you think that, or interpret the situation as there's something more happening. Obviously, this is a generalization. It may be that whenever your partner works all the time, and whenever he's with you, he's always on his phone. So instead of saying, like, who are you talking to, or who's that person, or you never pay attention to me, or are you seeing someone else, especially, instead you could say, I don't see you very often. Sorry, I'm kind of like pulling my thoughts together. When you are home, most nights, and we are spending time together, I see that you are on your phone, and I would really like your attention and to have direct communication where we engage each other. I feel it, because it makes me feel ignored and insecure. And that may not be your intention, but that's kind of how it comes across to me. Maybe it's not perfect nonviolent communication, but it's a more clear way of describing the specific behavior that you are unhappy with in your partner, and it gives them opportunity to change it. They may not, and then it's up to you if that's acceptable or not, and to continue negotiating your needs from there. So the thing is that this isn't like a magical thing that will solve all your problems, because sometimes you may be engaging with someone or in a relationship with someone who isn't interested in negotiating so both of your needs are met, or is genuinely interested in your well-being. And in those cases, when you communicate in this clear way, then it gives you clarity on the other person's willingness or not, as well as your own willingness, because there's no more confusion, judgments, or evaluations people can hide behind or around, or can use as excuses for denying responsibility. It's all very clear, just like making clear requests and not demands, and either you both find an effective way to relate to one another, or the issues become clear at that point. So I'm going to bring the video to a close here. I hope that was helpful to someone. This It's not easy to learn to communicate this way, and I'm still learning, but it has the potential to be pretty transformative. So take care all, and I'll see you all again soon.